Great. Appreciate everybody joining. We have, as the invite said, a day of construction photos. Over the years, as you collect photos, you see a lot of the same pictures over and over and over again. And then when something neat comes up, it's like makes the whole thing so much more fun. And in the last month, I was really lucky. There were three large collections of pictures that went up on eBay, and luckily had very, very, very little competition in getting them. So I picked up about another 1,000 slides in the last month. I'm doing a batch right now with somebody up on the top of the New York State Pavilion Towers with a telephoto lens that got some really great views of the pavilions. You normally see, a shot of the Bell system from up there, and it's this tiny little dot. Well, he had a really heck of a lens and got some really great shots. I'm looking forward to doing those. But the reason we're here today is construction photos. This one batch had quite a few photos of the construction of the fair and then the early days of the fair. So he starts back in, I think the earliest one here is August of '62, and works his way through, we're going to go through 62, 63, early '64, and then quite a few shots. You wish you knew what the person's background was or why they were there. So most of these shots, an awful lot of them are in the transportation area. So we're going to see lots of General Motors, Ford, that sort of thing, and occasionally he'll pop over someplace else. It's also interesting that during this period of time, the Port Authority, we're going to see pictures of that from very early on to finish. The Port Authority was the first building that was open to the public. It wasn't the first building actually built. You're going to see Disney's General Electric Pavilion was probably the first one furthest along, and then Kodak. But the Port Authority building, it must have gone up like a dandelion. And Carol and I right now are picking dandelions out of the lawn like crazy. I mean, they're not there in the morning, and at 3 in the afternoon they're blooming. Well, the Port Authority went up like a rocket, but when it did open, they opened for dining, and you could go up and look out over the fairgrounds and see the site being built. And then so we're going to see shots of people arriving at the Port Authority, and then they took some other pictures outside. So let me go over here to the first picture. Share screen. Okay, can folks see the guy with the piles here?
Yes.
Right. We're in August 1962, and these are steel pilings. And if people are able to juxtapose the houses in the background of some other things to figure out exactly where some of these things are, would be appreciated. But over in the upper left-hand corner, there you can see a structure standing there. That was called the Budd, B-U-D-D shelter. Budd had a big pavilion at the '39 World's Fair. And the Budd shelter was part of what they were showing, how the things they could do with aluminum besides building aluminum train cars. They had this shelter and picnic tables under it. And it stayed out there after the '39 fair closed. They left that, and something else. We'll see the Budd weather vane. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, they tore these out and didn't leave them there for the '64 fair. Which, if you look where they were on the map, it looks like they could have done it pretty well. This is right near the Ford Pavilion site. So why they had to finally tear them out, I don't know. But the ground, if you're familiar with Flushing Meadows, again, it was a swamp. It was a ash heap. It was not. It's not real solid dirt. So back in the '39 fair, they had to put a lot of pilings in. And in some cases, they were able to reuse some of the pilings that had been done for '39. So like the Florida Pavilion was built on top of pilings that they had used in the '39 fair. But others, they had to put pilings in. And in some cases, they put steel pilings in like this. In other cases, we're going to see a whole bunch of wood pilings. And that comes up with a controversy of, things like the New York State Pavilion. Does it have steel pilings under it? Does it have wood pilings? Does it have a combination of them? In some cases, they kept records, and others they didn't. But in this particular case, if you're looking at the Ford Pavilion, it was only supposed to last for 2 years. Steel pilings would be a heck of an expense. Was this partially or probably or possibly rather the Hall of Science, which was intended to last? Tough to know. So we're going to see again in some of these pictures you can tell right where they are, and others you can't. You know that they're just not labeled or there's not landmarks there. This particular one, you can see that they've dug really deeply into the ground. I believe, and this is just again conjecture based on past photos I've worked on, I believe that this is the basement area for the General Motors Pavilion, but I don't know for sure. They're getting ready to pour concrete. And this again shows you how things have changed over the years. They would take this, you know, big bucket, fill it up with concrete, bring it over the crane. The guy would open the hatch, concrete would pour out into the footing that they're putting in. Today, they don't use anything like this. If you see construction sites, you have a giant snorkel truck going over. The concrete is in a truck, it's pumped up through a pipe and then come down. They can do an awful lot faster because they can just pretty much pump concrete as fast as they can empty out the truck. Where here you got to fill up this this conveyor thing, swing it over, lower it down. So we're going to see some ancient by those times construction equipment. More steel pilings going in. Again, don't know exactly where this is, but you can see behind it the earth mover. Massive construction they were doing for some of these pavilions. And if you zoom in on this, which we can, you can see how far these pilings are going to be going down. So here's 70 feet down into the ground. That's a pretty big piece of metal to be putting down there to you know, take the load of this stuff. Like I said, I've gone through and you try to figure out exactly where and when it is and everything. If anybody can figure it out from this, please let me know. Again, more construction, lots going on. You can see that wall we were doing in the back there. They're working on it. And then these folks here are putting up rebar to form a footing for something else. Again, if we zoom in on it, we can see we do have a bunch of people up here with some hard hats on. You can see for the way everybody's dressed, it must have been a pretty hot day building the fair at this particular point. Again, we're in August 1962. Again, if I go back here, this structure here, it's got some transformers on it. This pretty well locks in for me that this was the General Motors Pavilion because I do have a picture of temporary transformers like this, and it's clearly next to GM. And then GM does have this giant hole where they did the basement. And the guys are out walking along a very precarious looking catwalk there as they're building the retaining wall. It'd be interesting, again, if you had a shovel and you started digging, how far down you would have to go before you'd hit some of this stuff. They were required to take it out to something like 6 foot below the grade level. In some cases, I think they just, at the end of the fair, put more dirt on top of it to fill it in. And, you know, these walls and stuff are still likely down there. Pile driving, we're going to see some, again, ancient stuff where a lot of these things were steam driven. Yeah, we'll see one of the machines has a big boiler in the back, and they fire it up, and you know, they go pounding these things into the ground. You figure that people living in those houses back there probably got pretty damn tired of the ground shaking and these things pounding and pounding and pounding as they went on. Besides the actual fair itself, they were also building all sorts of highways. I believe this is the Van Wyck Expressway. We're going to see a whole bunch more pictures at this point in time. But again, here's where they're bringing the concrete over by a giant crane, dropping it down to fill things in. So besides the fair, they were doing a massive building program in New York for all the highways, which Moses was putting in place, both to get people on and off of Long Island, in and out of Queens, but to get people over to the fair site. And the guy that's taking these kind of jumped all over the place. Back again, I believe General Motors. Again, if we zoom in up here, these pictures were really in nice shape. They took very little reconstruction, but you can start picking up the names of the construction companies. And you can just see cement trucks lining up, getting ready to dump the concrete into here, and then they'd swing it over. Today, they could probably do this in 1/10 of the amount of time.
Is that the only pavilion that has a basement?
Yes, this is the basement again. So I believe this is the basement of General Motors here. And again, a 2-year structure. I mean, they did a massive amount of digging, but look at all the amount of rebar and everything that they're putting into these walls here. Thing I was also trying to figure out as I was going through these, you know, you wonder what kind of window or something they were doing here below ground that they left this this opening. Little details we'll just probably never know. If you're a fan, and this fellow Dave Watts is a big fan of New York City highways, you can start zooming in here. You can see, you know, they make up the old style of road signs. And pilings, again, I'll mention wood pilings. You can have treated wood pilings, which you've put creosote and that sort of stuff on them to protect them. You can have just raw wood pilings. You can have wood pilings with a metal cap on them to, again, try to preserve them. Basically, what happens is you can imagine there's water in this area, particularly being so near the Flushing River and the bay. The water gets in and, you know, eats away the pilings over time. So in some cases, the top of the piling may look really, really good, but if you go further down, they're rotted away. But there's pictures in some of these shots here of train cars lined up in a siding, with just loaded and loaded with pilings that they were putting in. So the fair site was just absolutely full of these to hold up buildings under the very less than optimal soil. More freeway. Like I said, no safety harnesses or anything in sight, right? Again, big steam shovels and cranes and everything used today. You know, if you were going to be digging things, they have much more efficient, you know, backhoes, bobcats, all sorts of things you could go. If you were a big fan of the 39 Fair archaeology, you can always just wonder what sort of stuff they were digging up in the ground as they were, you know, building these things. There's all sorts of pipes and wires and poles and stuff all over these shots. Again, more freeways going in. And what a job this guy has. He's down there in the mud. And it looks like they're pumping stuff out. And he's got this wire mesh over here to keep rocks from going into the pipe. But again, if you're digging a hole in a water-filled area, you're going to get water. Have no clue what they were building here on the side of the highway. I believe this is the Grand Central Parkway with the old style wooden lights. If you grew up in New York and then we moved out to Long Island, they had these wood poles all along all of our parkways. They, you know, now of course have breakaway steel ones, but you know that these were just very, very common to be seen there. So they're building something off to the side of the road there, big hole in the ground you can see, and then the walls that they're building. Again, if anybody's from New York and can locate that, I'd love to know. Back to the basement. And here's again rail cars. The again, telephoto lens kind of compressed the distance of things, but this is the rail line that comes in where they goes along the side where they built the Long Island Railroad Pavilion. I believe they're building a power station here based on these blocks and other construction shots I have taken by a Bell System engineer who was walking around when they were building their pavilion. But you can just see train car after train car pilings brought in over there. And guys like to take the basement pictures. So again, this was August of 1962. And we're going to hop up to March 31st, 1963. Again, very nice that they took the time and effort to date these things for us. I mentioned General Electric was one of the first pavilions built. They really got an early start on construction. So did Kodak. We're going to see more of that. And they had to do a tremendous amount of work inside this pavilion for the Disney shows that were to go on, plus all of the General Electric displays. Off to the right, you can see Shea Stadium in the background. We're going to see that more closely. And over to the right of that is 4 large metal rods going up. That's the very, very, very beginning of the IBM pavilion, the giant egg.
How did they get trees to grow in that soil? It was just an ash fill.
They treated it and they brought in lots and lots of topsoil. And the trees go pretty well.
The trees are already in place now.
What's that, Irv?
You can see the trees in place to the right of the pavilion right there. with little
Yeah,
stakes
they
around?
went through, in this particular case, they went through and very carefully mapped out the trees that were there for the 1939 fair that they wanted to keep for the 64 fair. In some cases, they transplanted them, took them up and took them to the Queens Botanical Garden and then brought them back. In other cases, they
Oh.
planted new trees in, and they were far enough along in their construction plans on some of these that they were able to give the trees some time to get themselves going. They're not going to be big trees by the time the 64 fair opens, but they're going to be rooted and grown. Today, if you go in and look, boy, these things are really grown up massively in many shots. So here's Kodak. As I mentioned, they were very far along. This is kind of interesting. The moon roof that you walked on, it was a concrete surface. And there's signs up here by the company that was very proudly doing the construction work. But basically, if we zoom in here a little on the side, you can see George Fuller was the main construction. We'll see this sign here about the concrete more. Build up giant amount of scaffolding, put plywood underneath it. You can see the edges of the wood sticking out, and then formed concrete on top of it. Up here, we'll see during the fair, the giant Kodak, pictures are up there. Again, massive amounts of steel used in building these buildings. They were temporary, but they had to be built to withstand hurricane force winds that could come up during the New York, hurricane season. Luckily, no hurricane hit here, but they had some tremendous storm damage to the 39 fair from storms. So they made sure that these buildings would last. Again, just some more shots of the area. General Electric over here, we'll zoom in a bit on that. You can see they're putting up the different panels here for the roof. If we remember that all lights up and they can go swirling around, so they're putting the different sections in here. Over here is one of the flag poles left from the 39-40 fair. They've been relocated and in place now for the 64. Over to the right, or right where this camera was the branch of the First National City Bank. And then this was a great thing for construction companies to put their ads on. So we can see here, Ingram and Green, they were the guys doing excavation foundations. The Diesel Construction Company over here, George Fuller, might be one of those things where it tells you where your site was, because if you were an Ingram and Green guy and you had to come out and do something, before there was a sign there, your dirt pile would look pretty much like everybody else's dirt pile. It also was, again, just good subliminal advertising for anybody that was building things to keep in mind. If you could build something as crazy as this pavilion, they could build a building for you. First of the Kodak letters is just going up on top. Again, all that is up there just to hold up those giant pictures. And here is, again, General Electric. This tower over here is the elevator that was used for VIPs and that. And you can see a letter here, J. They had a site plan. Again, when you first got out there, and there were some roads that were still existing from the 39 fair, so you could kind of situate yourself. But in other cases, it was just dirt. So they've carved the road through. They've got the trees, as Irv mentioned, or in planters. But you would be going out to your construction site, and you go to J3 and start digging, and you put your pavilion up. But you can see everything around here is just dirt. There's nothing going on, and that's how far along GE was ahead of everybody else. So again, over here to the left, IBM. We're going to see more of that building going up. Not a lot of competition going on. It's kind of fun again to just zoom in on some of these things and look around and say, oh, somebody, it looks like a brand new VW bus on site. I don't know, if I had a brand new vehicle, I'd be driving happily through here. More of Kodak going in. More GE. You see over here on Shea Stadium, just the steel work going up. The ramps are being put in, but none of the seats or anything else. And speaking of that, here we are. posted this on a few New York groups, and people were, oh boy, those ramps are the best thing in the world for a skateboarder. So it's funny, I am not now, never have been, never will be a skateboarder. So I was looking at just thinking of all the fun baseball games I had gone to there, and here were people talking about how much fun it was to get in and just go on the ramps. During the fair and for many years after, they had a big, what was called the confetti scheme of blue and orange panels, not yet affixed. We'll see them as we go further along. Over here to the Ford Pavilion, again, they're coming along fairly nicely. The big Wonder Rotunda is up here. Zoom in on this one a little. American Bridge was, somebody mentioned earlier, American Bridge and Bethlehem Steel. They had massive contracts to build the fair. And American Bridge built many of the pavilions. We're going to see their sign on the Ford Pavilion here, the Port Authority building. They were really big in the Bell System Pavilion, the United States Pavilion. They were very used to getting cantilevered structures put out there and knowing how to span things with steel. So they were quite a big factor. And we just go along again. This is again where all of Ford's dinosaurs and everything going to be in here in this particular show building. And you say, boy, it's awfully tall. What's everything else? Well, they again had all sorts of Ford offices and things in there to occupy the space, the back end of the building. Port Authority, again, big sign up here for, I think it shows up in this one. Let me zoom in here real quick. This is a different construction company sign, but if we go back and just look at it again, the buildings on the giant legs, lots of scaffolding going up, and then they're doing the upper reaches of it. They got this open really early and used it for all sorts of things. They had quite a few meetings of the Fair Corporation board up there, but they also like to bring in VIPs, particularly the press, and wine them and dine them up. But you bring these people into a nice, multi-star type restaurant environment, have them looking down at the site, and they go home and write great articles about how they're, the miracles coming in place in Flushing Meadows.
It doesn't look like those legs could support the weight of that. That's quite a structure.
Yeah, pretty much. They all the steel is, I guess they know what they're doing. Hopefully they know what they're doing. It's still there.
Still there.
And we can zoom in here, look at some signage here. Greyhound at the World's Fair. You'd never know this was going to be the Greyhound Pavilion if the sign was there. In the back, the New York State Pavilion towers are up, but the crown of the Tent of Tomorrow is not there, and the towers are not there. So just the concrete pillars are. But all sorts of construction trailers and things brought in on site. Just going on around. And there's the front of General Motors going in. Again, by now you can figure what this is. Okay, so we're going to go to the next date here. And now we're going up ahead, April 16th. So within just 2 weeks of where the last picture was taken, here's the IBM Pavilion. We'd seen the 4 steel beams that are, going up at a slant. Those are the support structure that the people stand moved up, the giant bandstand with all the people in it. The people wall would slide up those rails on giant hydraulic rams that pushed them up. And they're putting up the beams now to hold the egg, the theater where the show would be seen inside. Again, a different view. Somebody was commenting when I showed this picture earlier about all the guy wires that are holding all the things in place. If you zoom in on these closer, you can see that they not only bolted the pieces of steel together, but there's welds in there again to hold it. So the thing was built to handle a tremendous amount of load. After the fair, I do have an ad where they were trying to sell off the pavilion, and one of the things they were trying to sell people was the giant hydraulic rams used to lift the people wall up. Don't know whatever happened. I don't know whoever bought them, but again, that's what I love about things like World's Fair is where else would anybody build a building shaped like a giant egg with this sort of design? Mentioning holding things up, again, this entire building, we're gonna see it later covered with the egg design and everything, but all the people and everything else, and the legs of this thing are actually fairly small, aren't they? I mean, it held a tremendous amount of weight on those poles. More shots, the ring is being put into place. General Electric is coming along nicely. Again, signage being everything. We can see that it's done by the Turner Construction Company. And then they're putting in the colored panels and here that the roof lights will go on. IBM just off to the side. Again, it's just off to the side because of the compression of a telephoto lens. But in between here is the entire pool of industry. It just doesn't show in this particular shot. Triumph of Man in the background, the Jane Parker sign that gave Robert Moses such fits because they got free advertising by everybody that came to the fair. So this is the Triumph of Man exhibit. We're going to see it in its later days with a giant red top on it, where it looks like the Traveler Insurance umbrella. And again, B marker, so that when you started construction on your site, God forbid you were supposed to build your pavilion, you started digging and you were 6 feet off to the side. Or even worse, 30 feet off the side and built it on somebody else's land. But these are the markers to site deliveries, you know, take your first set of steel beams and drop it off at B5. American Bridge, again, having a great day here, the Bell System Pavilion. In this particular one, they built temporary towers. You can see all these ones with the scaffolding were the temporary towers. And these metal ones here, there's 4 of them, were the ones that were going to hold the entire building up in the air. We're about at the spot where the microwave tower went in later on. But again, just you can imagine people figuring this out, you know, thinking that it's all going to be done, built, and it's all done on calculators and people's heads. You know, slide rules, not even calculators back.
Yeah, slide rules.
More IBM. More Travelers. This must have been a great period of time between building the World's Fair, the Van Wyck Expressway, Lincoln Center, all the hotels that were building for people to come to the fair. This must have been one of the glory days of construction work for New York City. More pile of pilings lying out here. Okay, that was the last one. I can actually delete that. I had finished it and not deleted it. So that's the last one that particular day. So that's April 16th. We're now going to hop up here to April 20th. Second, April 20th. And again, things are moving along. Lots of scaffolding. There's a Shea Stadium in the background, and again, an unknown pavilion in the front. I try to, you know, map some of these things out where they are. In some cases, you can very easily tell by the shape of the pavilion. Others, just a lot of wood and steel building something. What it is as yet unknown to me. But whatever they're building, they putting up a tremendous amount of steel down there, putting flooring in, wood beams. You can see the things the walls they built to hold everything back as they're working in the hole. Over at Ford, things are coming along nicely. And this is inside the Fair Corporation model room. This over at the administration building. They had a model that they would go and put everything in place to show prospective people. That site is empty. I can help slot you in there. And then once you had agreed to it, they would put the model of your pavilion on there. If we go through this, again, it's interesting. The model in some cases was updated very rapidly, others not. In this particular case, Kodak right here has the this was the early design for the giant pictures. It was going to be a round tower, and instead of having 5 or 6 giant pictures on it, it had 30, 40 pictures that were not going to be anywhere as large, and it was done in a round design. Then they later switched off to the one that we particularly know. So they had not updated the pavilion here. There's some pavilions that never got built. This is the France Pavilion. It was supposed to be a giant state-run building, and then when the French government decided that they weren't going to be participating, private industry tried to do it. And they actually did have a Paris Pavilion, but it was a very, excuse me, nondescript warehouse type building that this grand structure had to be dropped. Over here, excuse me, give it some water, was the Arch of the Americas. It was again supposed to be a large sort of theme structure. It was not built. Over here, this was the pavilion, which during the fair was a geodesic dome, but earlier this was a general multi-purpose thing for you to come in, rent, have space, do shows, that sort of thing. So lots of the pavilions were built exactly as we know it. We can see down here, General Electric. It's interesting to see that IBM here was a dark colored pavilion as opposed to white, which it actually ended up being. So it's most of what's there, and there's still all sorts of empty spaces. No Belgian Village, but we see a little flag here. So, okay, the Belgian Village has been allotted space, but they've not built a model for it. I don't know if they ever did get a model of the Belgian Village on this site or not, but it's just interesting. Transportation and travel, totally different building than we ended up seeing with the geodesic dome on top. Nothing here for Chrysler other than their name. Again, same model, slightly different view for it, but this is how it existed in this period of time.
Interesting. It looks like Small World, which came very late to the game. All this is Pepsi Cola on that side. Doesn't say anything else, and there's no building.
Yeah, yep. It just shows you again how late they were working on getting some of these things done. And Pepsi has the thing where they were building the building and they had no idea what they were going to put in it. That's when Walt got dragged into it. Let me just go up here.
Bill,
Yes.
a quick comment. Remember in your earlier photos that work that was going on next to the parkway, you wondered what it was. They were pouring some concrete, some
Yes.
kind of structure. I wonder if it couldn't have been a bridge abutment for these bridges that are crossing there, going over towards like Ford and all that area. You see those in the model.
That could be.
And it might have been where the landing for that was. It looked like one when there was. We were looking at the picture, and then when I saw the model, it was like, oh, that might have been it there. So
That well could be, Brock. That's there had
might
to
help you locate where that was.
Yeah, there were existing bridges that they tore out or widened for between the 39 and the 64 fair. So that's a good possibility. Thank you. We're up to April 27th now, so work marches on. Not a lot of difference between the one that we saw a week ago, but over here there's something as notes going up. That's the observation towers being built for the New York State Pavilion. As I mentioned, if you're an amateur archaeologist, you'd wonder what on earth this had all been in place for the 39 fair. But yep, here's the very first scene we see is the towers going up over there. More General Motors up here. The mast is on top for the rotating time and temperature display that will be going into place. What's interesting is that Kodak, for example, was making big point to put their name up on their pavilions. You think for some of these others that there would have been more signs out to the public of what these things were coming. So they weren't yet taking advantage of the publicity. I mean, this sign here is not visible out to the public at all. It's the construction offices, for the site. So at some point in time, they eventually got signage up on there. The front of General Motors. And again, just all these little bungalows and shacks and everything being put in there for the temporary construction offices. For those of us that have worked on construction sites, the temporary offices will look pretty familiar. I see Brock nodding his head. And out here, again, Ford. It's zoom in here. The little thing you should pick up, it's the Columbia Asphalt Corporation. These guys must have just had a field day for, again, mention all the highways being built, these roads being built and everything. I imagine there were an awful lot of people that had very nice houses built in swimming pools after all the profits they made on building the fair. let me go, that was April 27th. And we're gonna skip up a bunch now into, let's see, February 64. 1, 3, okay. So middle of winter, luckily they did not have a very severe winter going on in New York that would have made life kind of tough for them. But things are coming along right now. This is the edge over here, the Ford moonroof. We see GE over here. The IBM egg is now intact. And so many other things have sprouted up. In the other shots, we didn't see any sign of the Tower of Light that's there. Johnson Wax is over here, the Austrian Pavilion. But all sorts of little things are taking place. Like look at all the street lights. The luminaries have started popping into place. In other places, you can see water fountains are being constructed. Again, if we zoom in here, it's a real mess. You know, I mean, you can imagine driving through all these, you know, they're just dirt roads at this point in time. But you can start figuring out exactly where you were then and where you are now by some things like the water fountains. You can still go out to the park and find them. Little pavilions are fairly far along. Arlington Hat is right here. And just like this guy here, it looks like he's got a nice convertible. I wouldn't want to be driving to work every day in my car and taking it through this site. We just picked up nails in 2 of our patrol car tires this week, so I'm really scared about driving through stuff. But I mentioned online, you can imagine somebody having a conversation between a agent, a photographer. Hey, the great news is I got you a picture on the Kodak Pavilion at the World's Fair. Hey, that's great. Yeah, except it would be before the fair is open. But at this point in time, they started putting things out where, again, taking advantage of publicity. It's no accident that this one faced out to the freeway that went around the World's Fair. So they don't have the other ones up yet, but start putting these things out and you know, getting people's attention to it. Again, this is all held up there by giant. They're done on, I think, about 8 strips of paper held up to that surface with vacuum fans holding it tight. Front illumination rather than back, although they did look like slides. But now they're getting things together before the fair is open. More of the site, a real mess. I mean, just all sorts of garbage and debris. Just cleaning this stuff up is going to be a real challenge. Some pavilions are fairly well along. Others are, Schaefer here does not have a red roof or anything on it. Back in the back, you can see the tremendous amount of progress made on the bell system. Over here is a bridge, and maybe that's one of the ones we saw the abutment, but here's the bridge going over to the lake amusement area. The Vatican Pavilion is going up here. The Astral Fountain looks like it's all set and ready to go. If you look here, this one, hot coffee, there are a bunch of these hot coffee trucks that show up all throughout the fairgrounds. Again, must have just been a gold mine for these particular people. And lots of construction shanties, the GE logo propped up high so everybody can see it. Tower of Light down below again, Arlington Hats. Shea in the background has now got seating in it, so it's coming along nicely. Then they have temporary road signs. See if it shows up in this one here, Avenue of Commerce. So again, by now signs have gone up to tell you how you know where you're going with that. Journal Cigar in the background. What's interesting is one of these signs reads the Avenue of African Nations, which was interesting because there was an Avenue of Africa, but there was no Avenue of African Nations. So, and they're both in the same picture. So you wonder if, you know, they changed names at some point in time. Again, just wood and piles and metal drums. Schaefer over here, all going up. More hot coffee. Over by Ford, entrance pylon, you can see they're all stacked up here. Ford now has had these steel pylons covered in material, painted, and the buildings inside. You can see the glass work and everything as they're building things inside. Transportation and travel, again, we mentioned the other design was dropped. They went to this giant dome structure so they could show the Cinerama movie in it. This pavilion was very, very late in getting itself built. And at the very beginning of the fair, the fair was actually open, and they were still putting the simulated moon surface on the top of the building. New York State Pavilion has been cocooned here in plastic, so the workers can work on it without freezing in the winter, including the elevator towers here. But again, look at all the scaffolding. I mean, tremendous amount of work to put it together. Bunch of the Greyhound buses have been delivered, are sitting here ready for deployment. Same general view here. Mobile gas down below. Over here, we're gonna have looks like some generator systems or something else going in here. The facade for General Motors. Street lights are up, but no lights are on them yet for the parking lot. And things are coming along very nicely for the Port Authority. As mentioned, this is February 64, and they've got the building pretty much done. And you can see inside the table, actually, if you zoom in closer, you can see lights and some of these things sitting on tables. The curtains are in, and they're serving meals and letting people see the construction going on down below. Up top, the heliport has been built, and some of these shots, we're going to see some early shots of helicopters coming in. You can see a lamp sitting here. Again, if I zoom in real close, I can see it more on my side. The lamps are on the tables, and down below, people are sitting here eating. So it is open, and they are having a great day looking at the fair. While the building is still being finished, it's got the beginning of the Port Authority name going on up at the top.
Are those little windows on the underside?
What's that?
There's little windows on the underside of that?
Yeah, what you call it, this is basically I believe a maintenance and work area. I don't know if they're windows or ducts for the air conditioning system. I think more of the latter. If I zoom in on them, they look like ducts to me as opposed to the windows. What's interesting here is it looks like some of these things actually open up, and you wonder if that's for maintenance, window cleaning, or what.
Bill, on the Port Authority building, are there two levels of restaurants?
Yes, yeah,
I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah. And that way and now they've actually built a third one up on top for wedding venues, so they can have multiple events going on there at any particular time.
I'm kind of assuming that the upper restaurant with had the drapes showing in the previous picture, that's probably the more elegant of the two
Yeah.
restaurants, I'm guessing.
Right. And I've got some great shots of people having dinner up here again before the fair is open, and they're all sitting there, and you can see that the table is very nice, but I'm looking past them out the window to all the Chrysler building being built. So they've got the rotating display up on General Motors. They put the name up in the building, so it's 3:38 in the afternoon, and people just riding their bikes by. Again, signs for Westinghouse going in place. Little pavilions that you catch over here. Here's the Alaska Pavilion, Missouri Pavilion. So all sorts of things are going along. Again, we're getting pretty close to opening day. This is February 64. There's not a lot of time left, and there's still an awful lot of stuff to be done before it's open. Down below here, again, this is open, so you can see all sorts of people. You could come in, basically park out here, take the elevator up, and eat. During the fair, a number of people discovered that it was really a great way to get into the fair for free. You could go up to the restaurant, walk around, and come right back down a set of stairs that went out into the fair. And the Fair Corporation apparently never, ever toppled to the fact that it was a free way into the fair, because they never had anybody checking for readmission when you went from the, the idea was you go into the restaurant, have lunch, come back out to the fair, but they never put a pest control gate in, and people around the area started realizing up, over, done, and in. So kind of interesting how, people don't think things through sometimes. Okay, so that's, we're gonna hop over here to the next one. Again, it's February 64. 1, 3, 4, 6. So March 26th, and it's getting real close to opening day, and the fair is not open, but you're going to see people walking around. This shadow of somebody in here is some others here, because again, they started doing previews. If you were General Motors, you didn't just open the big thing, the doors on day one, and hope it all worked. You did, you know, what we call soft openings, and you would bring people in. You know, your construction crews were treated to a night. Every General Motors dealer in the you know, tri-state area would get a chance to come in. You know, all of your you know, big stockholders, that sort of things. So the fair is lit up. New York State looking particularly nice at night. Everything's brand new, sparkling clean. And again, this is about 2 weeks before the fair opened to the general public. And you can see the silhouettes out here. It must have been really neat to have been one of the first people to get an invite to go into the fair. So you know, a lot of the shows, any particular night you went in, the whole fair was probably not going. You know, so they'd have a General Motors night, a Ford night, you know, that's that sort of thing. But just to be able to walk around the grounds and be one of the first people to go in and see the, you know, the Unisphere lit up like this at night, and the magnificent fountains going, all the flags of the nations lit up and everything, really it had to be just special. Particularly, look how light the crowds are, that you can wander around and, you know, see what you can see and take pictures. The capitals of the world lit up on it. Down below, you can see there's Ford escorters, so they were out running for the VIP service, take people around at night. And again, this was great practice for you know, the people for General Motors, sorry, Greyhound. You know, get your crews in here, you know, give rides around, get used to practicing your spiels, you know, get used to driving the escorters, winding your way through people, playing the horn, you know, go Greyhound, leave the driving to us that it would make the sounds. Fountains of the fairs, the bell system in the background, the rocket thrower. So we'll go to the next batch here. April 27th, getting closer and closer. Oh, wait, I think I did April 20. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. The sets were out of order, so I had skipped around there. So basically now the fair is going to be open, and we're going to jump into some night views. So whoever the original photographer was, he did a really nice job, and these pictures held up very, very well in this particular set. About halfway through this box, and I've got 3 giant more boxes to go of it. But this, again, the very first month of the fair here. Well, actually, it opened in April. This is in May. But some nice nighttime views. Mentioned in prior talks how IBM realized at night nobody realized what they were looking at. So scaffolding will shortly be going back up. It will be carving some of the IBM letters out and putting light up versions in. And GE is looking real good. Matter of fact, everything's looking pretty good. It's a very nice night there. This gives an example going between the two of them, how that patterns would change on the rotating roof. Over here, the Better Living Center doesn't look bad at night. Not one of my favorite pavilions, but looks okay at night. And you start seeing for all the heads a fairly large amount of people out here, and they're going to be lining up because they want to see the fireworks show. And speak of the devil, here we go. So every single night for 2 years, the fireworks show. It's a spectacular show they put on. Again, if you go to my website, you can listen to the music for the fireworks show and the announcer. And they had several themes: the patriotic night and you know, college night, or whatever the different ones were. And looking out across the Grand Central Parkway, Ford is all lit up and getting great advertising. the Ford dealers across the nation weren't so thrilled that all the Ford advertising budget went into, New York for 2 years, but, they said Ford sales and GM sales and everything did very well, particularly in the tri-state areas. People came out and saw the cars.
It's not a maintenance, could you go back one, Bill?
What's that?
It's not a maintenance bay open there in the Ford Pavilion. If you look to the right of the door, there's two. Yeah, there, right there. Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, this actually, I believe this is the "Where Are You From" booth. Where are you from? And
Mhm.
there's somebody standing here. This little pigeonholes that this was not a booth, a bay. This is a booth outside, and that's where they gave you the little badge that said Ford. I mean, said Ford at the top, and then New York, Delaware, whatever. So
I was looking to the right of that. It looks like
yeah.
a bulldozer sitting there.
I think that was actually a piece of equipment that was on display.
Oh, okay.
There. Yeah, I think these are just the glass doors that went in there. And around
Okay.
to the pavilion, you could go and see, because Ford was big into tractors and farm equipment. And I think that's what that is there. But yeah, I mean, Nike is a whole different perspective of things. But here you can see glass door, glass door, glass door, glass door.
Mhm.
But you can also see, sign, come to World's Fair, where the parking is. You can pick up all sorts of, little neat things. As far as in the Magic Skyway, over to Chrysler, the Rocket. These water jets just absolutely roared. I mean, they didn't just spray water out; they pumped it out there at a hell of a volume. So you really had the impression of power and everything. And what was interesting, you certainly knew about, different companies in aerospace and anything. Chrysler was actually doing a lot with rocketry at that time, which was, pretty much unknown to me until you started looking into it.
Bill, do you have any movies of the Chrysler rocket running?
Yes, I do, Wayne, and I'm restoring some, and a couple weeks from now, I have some great video, and I believe I have the rockets ready to go. And unfortunately, they're silent movies in this particular case, but the water's just really pounding out of it. The movie might be from the '65 season when it had the red paint scheme. I'd have to remember. So a helicopter coming in for a landing in the Port Authority, which is nice. They got all their letters up. Over time, they added additional signage right in this area. It's the top of the fair to try to remind people that there was a restaurant up here. Because again, if you were the average person, we never had the money to eat at the Port Authority. It was well beyond my budget that I had. But they started attracting people's attention to the fact that this was not just a heliport. We actually have restaurants up here. So they put other signs up. Thought this was a nice one of the Chrysler area. These are all truck bodies building this gazebo effect, and very nice still night water down here, and you can see it all reflected in the pool down below. General Motors, if you again remember back to the earlier one that had more of a blue color, where they could change the colors, they rippled across here. So it wasn't as dramatic as the GE Pavilion with the swirls of light moving along, but the lights pulsated and changed colors across time on General Motors.
With those little windows at the bottom, you can see the fair from the right, can't you?
Yeah, actually, I don't remember what these particular ones looked out. There was a VIP lounge off on the side of the building, and I don't know what these particular windows overlooked, or to be honest with you. Hong Kong, with the 3 Chinese junks in front. And again, it's just some nice views of the fountains. I like this particular one, very quiet at night. You can see how small the crowds are. And it was, if you look here, there's a truck, parked at, what you can see the headlights here, sort of thing, whatever they're doing, but not many people out. Just a nice night across the fairgrounds.
Well, they kept them lit up all night, I believe.
Yeah, it was lit up all night, just like Disney keeps Main Street lit up. It looks good from the hotels, that sort of thing. So I think that's the last one. I'm still restoring others, and hang on, let me see if I can just grab something else real quick. think that's the last one I
Still,
have.
do you still have those aerial photographs I sent you?
What's that?
You still have those aerial photos showing the construction? I sent
Yeah,
you
I have some of
25
them,
pictures.
you know, somewhere around. Hang on one second. I just want to go grab something else. I have the final drive and the work in progress drive, which I'm just opening up now. Okay. So these are basically what I do is I scan them in different settings and combine them. So this is with recovery of color off, on, and I'll be putting them together. But just I thought it was just nice for some night views. I have to also sharpen them up and stuff like that. The guy that has the telephoto lens that's on my laptop sitting off here to the side, he can rack it in and get some amazing details. But here, just look at all the brass rail restaurants scattered around the grounds. Just, it was a real particular wonderland at night. Well, I've got others to work on, but I can stop sharing for now. So let me just go to the chat, see what people have done. But any particular thoughts or observations? Let me go back to the beginning. You know, Avon, we talked about. Kim Henning had a station wagon, a 65 Chrysler, lasted until 1990. Well, that's a long time for a car from back then to last. Wow. Okay. Just reading through here. Yeah, Jim Brown's mentioned the New York State Pavilion steel pilings under the observation towers, and supposedly under the supporting columns of the Tent of Tomorrow is a combination of wood and steel. The side of the highway, Jim says they're building supports for the overpasses to the transportation area. So he and he and Brock would appear to be in agreement on that.
Well, I wrote hopper. That's what they called those big concrete bucket things, you know, that
Yeah,
they loaded up and dropped it in the forms. Yeah.
well, that's great. I know that hopper makes sense. The capitals do not light up, Kathy. The lights were done during the time of the fair where they were incandescent filaments, and the lights are really neat. They had a little motor in them that as one set of filaments would burn out, the motor would rotate the light to the next set of filaments. Unfortunately, during some point in time in the 70s, they chopped off all the wires. I've actually got pictures of the electrical junction box at the bottom of the Unisphere, and you can see all the wires come in and all the wires, you know, the power lines come up, and they just chop them all off. So the lights are still spinning up there. They probably would not work by now. I mean, they're certainly not going to rotate or anything like that. But people keep talking about this would be a perfect application to put new LED lights up there that would last, you know, forever and, you know, could go on. The question is who's going to pay for it and, you know, do it. But the light fixtures are still up there. And if you go to the fair site, you can see some of the plastic is broken off of some of the dome that was over it is broken off, and you can actually look inside and see the structure of the light mechanism that would turn around. Others look, you know, perfectly intact and ready to go. Jim, you got something?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of those, of the unit, and I studied it very carefully, and I cannot find any kind of motor or moving thing. What appears to be in there are 3 quartz bulbs, and I cannot figure out what would make where one would blow out and would go to the next and the next. There's no area where I see any kind of circuitry or SCR solid state switch in there or anything. So I don't know. Do you have a better picture that shows the motor and the?
Let me see real quick. I have the question, of course, where do I have? If I remember right, the lights were done by a company called Circle D. Let's see if I find it here. No. I'll have to look for that for a future one. I do have, what you call it, an ad that they put in, trade papers to, try to tell people how, if we could build these lights for the fair, we could build any sort of special lights for you. If I remember right, they were out of New Jersey. Yeah, if I put in a light, for example, I come up with a zillion tower lights. I'll try to find that for a future time.
That ad picture is the one I'm talking about in the ad. It just shows the four
Yeah.
bulbs on a little base and nothing really below it. Some of the wires going up to them, but nothing else.
Yeah, I'll have to dig that up. Richard Herring, are there plans for the 60th anniversary? Good question. I keep getting messages from people at the Queens Museum. Hey, we want to do something for the the 64 Fairs anniversary. Are you interested? Yes. And then the cone of silence falls. And then, are you interested? Yeah, I am. Cone of silence. So we're back in a cone of silence period right now. I sure would have to think that they would do something for the 60th anniversary. If nothing else, it would get more people on site, more people, to the museum. Jim, you've got your feet on the ground literally back there. Have you heard of anything planning for the 60th?
Nothing yet. We're talking about that. We need to start thinking about it. As far as what Parks is doing, we haven't seen any activity. I do know that we are, when the construction is done of putting in the new lighting system of the towers, we're going to be doing something with that. But as far as the 60th, I don't know. We're hoping to do something, but that is a discussion we got to start getting into.
Well, if nothing else, I'll come back and we can get a case of Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, 7-Up, whatever. We can sit in there and, I don't want to, hey, can you drink a beer in the park? Is that allowed?
No, not technically, although when we're inside the building working, not that we drink in there, but a few times somebody lit up a cigarette, but no, technically you're not allowed to do any of that anywhere in the park.
Yeah, otherwise I'd come back and celebrate Schaefer and Rheingold and.
Well, we do see a lot of beer bottle caps all around the grounds. And we joke about how they're probably left over from the beer pavilions.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill,
Yeah.
it may be worthwhile to try and reach through the Queensborough President's office. They may be worth reaching out to their PR person. They may be interested.
Well, Lynn Melanowski said there were plans in the works. And
I know.
Bob Gurr reached out to her, Garner, and they were all going to help. And then nobody heard from her again.
That's exactly, who reaches out to me, I get in touch with her and we'll set up a Zoom to get together and then it never happens. So
Is she the main person out there?
for this particular stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, this happened again, in the 50th anniversary where about 3 to 6 months beforehand, all of a sudden they realized, oh my God, this thing's coming down the track like a freight train. And I pretty much expect that's going to be what the case. And to be fair to them, the fair is only part of what the museum does and everything. And it's super, super important to us, not as super important to everybody else in Queens, the whole area. So I think things will come together. I think, again, it's going to be a freight train racing toward, down the track at incredible speed. But I cannot imagine I'll drop her a note again. 1 second. Yeah, again, we did the stuff for the 50th anniversary was great fun. I mean, Jim and the guys at the New York State Pavilion open, and it was the longest line I've ever seen for anything. Oh, thanks for the contact info, Richard. That was the longest line I've ever seen for anybody to get into anything. And that included, the opening of any attraction we opened at the Disney parks. It was nothing. This was to walk inside a wreck of a building, look around and walk back out. And, how long would you say people were waiting on the line there, Jim?
Well, They were there several hours. In fact, at the time, we were not equipped to handle that many people. We only had a certain number of hard hats. We weren't equipped well enough, and a lot of people got turned away because we had to close by a certain time that the Parks Department set. But I think, if I'm correct, that opening of the pavilion wasn't on the same day that the Parks Department did the 50th, but we were also open on that day as well. And as time went on, we kept adding more exhibits and more things for people to see. But that very first day when we had that long line, we only had a few interpretive panels around, but the main attraction was that they got into the building for the first time. And by the way, that line, we estimated that line, which stretched all the way outside the fairgrounds over to the transportation area to 111th Street, it was probably longer than any one day at the General Motors Pavilion.
Well, I was just going to mention it because I was there. I gave 2 talks at the Theaterama Pavilion or that particular day, and we walked. We come over, seen the line, and we said, okay, we'll start walking the end of it. And we went all the way around the New York State Pavilion, got across the bridge, walked all the way across the bridge, and it literally went out, as Jim mentioned, all the way out to the edge of the fairgrounds. And there's somebody took a video that was online. I don't know if it still is anymore, where he walked the whole length of the line and he sped it up. But it was an incredible event. So I'm hoping that we can repeat some of that magic and it was a beautiful day too. The weather was real nice and just all sorts of people were out there. It was a great day. So Ken, you're going to be up there for May 20th for Trek Long Island. Oh, I'm going to New York in July for the my college reunion. So I'll hope to get back to that, and then I'm thinking about going back by Ticonderoga again.
Yeah.
Ken says I had a bit of a mystical experience while photographing that line. My phone switched into black and white mode, and I got a bunch of photos that looked rather 60-ish. That's cool.
It was the funniest thing. I could not get it out of that mode without just doing a complete power cycle. And I have no idea how I got into it. It's never happened again. It was like I hit this mystical field around the pavilion and it's like went back in time or something, but the people stayed. It was fun. It was a long line. You guys are right. I walked it. I didn't do the movie thing with it, but it was insane in a good way.
No, it was great. You didn't do what movie thing?
Oh, I didn't take the movie walking down the whole line that you were talking about.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
I took a bunch of stills and a few
Right.
quick shots, but it was very impressive to see that go on to infinity, basically.
Yeah, and I remember, people being told that you probably won't get in at this point because they have to close by a certain point. Well, I'll just stand in here line and take my chance anyway and see if I fit in or not. That was insane. Baron is being funny. He says that they're going to open the secret GAF time capsule under the Kodak Pavilion. Kodak was also, by the way, besides being one of the first pavilions built, they were the first one to be torn down, site cleared, and land turned back over. So back at that point in time, Kodak really had their act together on everything they were doing. And they were very proud of the fact that they met their contract, got out of Dodge, and they were done ahead of everybody else. But yeah, it's like I said, I just love going through the construction site photos, and I keep zooming in. I see Joey Vento wasn't here this week, but he'd be loving it because I could just imagine Joey running around the site with a little red wagon, filling it up with pieces of the 39 fair and hauling it home. So 2 weeks from now, there's no talk next week. Next week's pancake breakfast at the police station. So we had seen Brock at a prior one. If you want to come back for more pancakes, if you're in the area, Brock will be doing that again. But if anybody else is in the greater Los Angeles area, next week is our annual open house. It's your chance to go into and out of the police station on your own volition.
Bill, what time does it start and all that?
I think it starts around 8. I have to be there earlier to set up cars in it. But if you're able to come up, Randy, that'd be really great.
Yeah, I want to try to grab my friend that lives in Studio City. We can drive from there. Yeah.
Yeah, we basically they bring in we have a tour of the station. We give here's where the holding cells are, and that's the fun stuff. But they also bring in the SWAT team usually comes and puts out a giant table of their armament. They bring in a bunch of the canines, and you can see how friendly the dogs are until you say whatever the trigger word is, that sort of stuff. But it's great fun, and we'll be there for the morning for that. And then again, it's all the pancakes you can eat. It's a fundraiser. We have a organization called Solid. It's called Supporters of Law Enforcement in Devonshire, and they pay for all sorts of things that the city just does not have a budget for. So it's $3, $5, whatever they charge. I'm not even sure. I've got the tickets already for the pancake breakfast, but it goes into like our lobby was redone to be COVID compliant, and that was all done by by Solid rather. We have a gym in the station for people to try to stay in shape. That was done by Solid. Our station is so old, it's now coming up for replacement. They didn't bother building anything like a break room, for it. So rather than have everybody eat in the back seat of their patrol cars, Solid actually put a little kitchenette area and used to be a storeroom and stuff. So they've done some neat stuff. If you're up in the area, we'll be doing that. And 2 weeks from now, Joey Vento is going to take us up to the top of the New York State Pavilion Towers when he made his expedition up there a number of years ago. So he'll be doing that. The week after that, I will be in Brock's neighborhood, not seeing Brock, but I will be there for my daughter's wedding. We are racing, again, the analogy of a train racing down the track. And this one appears to be staying on the track, and knock wood, things going so far. And then the week after that, I've got a whole bunch of movies that are stacked up, including, if you're a fan of Coney Island, what it was like in 1972 or so, some really great footage of Astroland and the boardwalk, and more of the Disney theme parks and that sort of stuff. So, it's hard to believe past the 2-year mark going to the 3 of these talks, and I keep saying, I'm going to run out of stuff, and then more stuff keeps coming in the mail. So it's great fun. Oh yeah, Scott says without handcuffs. If you do want handcuffs on, we can arrange that. It's actually interesting how many people like to get pictures of their kids in handcuffs. So we can arrange that. But they do. The station, it's not real exciting. I mean, it's a bunch of offices and, holding cells or whatever, but they bring you through and they discuss, we use different types of armament for different things, like bean bags. They show you the guns, and they don't shoot them off because they'll scare people. But I recently went out, we did training with the bean bag shotguns, and you have the small ones that are supposed to just get your attention, and the bigger ones that are supposed to knock you down. And so they have all that stuff on display. If it all goes right, they bring in a helicopter, park that up on the roof. You get up to go there, and the kids just love to get a picture sitting in the front seat of the helicopter. So it's great fun, and it's just we got a very small park across the street from the station, and families just come out. We usually get a really good turnout. So for the rest of you that are far away, I will eat pancakes in your honor.
Save some for me. I'll eat them in June.
You want to see my aerial photos? I can bring them up if you want to see them.
Yeah, sure, Irv. Yeah.
How do I share the screen? Hit at the bottom, share screen.
Well, I have to make you a co-host first.
Bill, how's the weather?
The aerial pictures are more fascinating than the ground photos.
Yeah, just 1 second. Scott, was that you asking a question?
Yeah, how's the weather been? Any more rain still?
We actually had rain and drizzle Wednesday night and Thursday. We were talking earlier in the week how it rained like mad last week, and then you can start seeing the deep Kelly green start getting a little yellowish green on the hills. Then the rain came in for another day and night. It was just very gentle rain, but they're back to dark Kelly green again. So the stream is still flowing outside the house. The flowers and everything around the neighborhood are just gorgeous. You're on a patrol and you're looking at houses to make sure you don't see somebody going over a wall or anything. But we were out yesterday. Wow, look at that flowers in that yard. Oh my God, look at the cactus, how they've grown and they're flowering, and it's just really pretty in LA right now. So Irv, you should be able to go down at the bottom, share screen.
Share screen. Oh, I forget where I got these photos. I've had them for a while. Share screen.
Bill Wall, just a scary thing. Small correction. You said this was your second going in your third year. It's actually your third year going on your fourth.
Oh,
You've been
God,
doing
that's
this for-
scary.
You've been doing this for 3 years now. Time
Ugh,
flies.
no wonder I feel old.
It's funny because you said you would do it for a year and then run
I
out of
thought I'd do it
topics.
for 2-3 months and then we'd be over and done and COVID would be over. All right, we're seeing your window
first-
screen here.
Yep, see your
And
slides.
That's the Westinghouse time capsule marker right there.
Well, we're not seeing any large version of it. We see the thumbnails in a black square or rectangle.
How do I get it the full screen? Let's see.
May have shared the wrong screen.
Share the wrong screen. Wait a minute.
If you had both up, that picture and the opening, you need to share the one with the actual large. If you've opened it.
Where am
Yeah,
I
so-
looking here?
So stop share.
Hit stop share.
Yeah, hit stop share.
Where is stop share? I don't even see
So the
it.
share screen
Should
and then
be
find
a
stop share there.
little red button where it says they can now see your screen.
Oh,
Here, I stopped it for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I have to get rid of it too.
yeah,
So
I
if you
hit
share
this.
screen, look for the Westinghouse picture and share that screen, not your Windows screen.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong. You
Okay,
see
we
it
got
now?
some- There it is, you got it.
Okay, there it is. Screen sharing. Okay. I forget where I got these. They're interesting. And here, can you see that one with the yellow labels on it?
Yeah,
It's interesting. It points out everything on there. And that was taken June 19th of 1963, with only 10 more months to go. Here it is with the labels off it. You can see the pillars of the New York State Pavilion clearly. And there's General Electric and there's Kodak. You see all that? You see over there, there's a good shot of the General Motors building. Now this shot over here, this is the Astral Fountain, the Vatican, and the lot where the Belgian village is going to be. This was taken also June 19th, 1963. So they have a lot of work to do in about 10 more months.
yeah, I think these came
And this
from
is
a
the bridge
site.
going over to the amusement area down here.
Yeah, I think these came from a site called Queen's Picks, which is not there anymore, but it was a fellow that sold historical pictures of Queens and
That's not a very good shot, but that's the Festival of Gas.
right.
also 1963. It's not one of the better pictures. Now here's an interesting shot of General Motors where they're putting the roof on the cantilever front. Look how light the traffic is on the expressway too.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, that's a big building. Now this shot is that corner, that hotel on the Gulf Station on the southwest corner of the grounds. And we got,
Does anyone know if that hotel is still there?
Yeah, it is. We had a group called, Gathering at the Park back about the 40th anniversary of the fair. And we met in there. I don't know if it's still active as a hotel today. The building is still there. I think it may have gone from hotel into residential housing, but the building is still there.
yeah, see now in this shot, you can see, this is the IBM building. Inside the egg, that's DuPont's show about chemistry. And this is the Festival of Gas over here. Look how big the trees are.
Yeah,
Still left over. Now here's an interesting shot of the New York State Pavilion. On the left, you can see the scaffold where the towers are going. It would have been interesting if you could see the circular girder in there before they lifted it up.
I've got
Lower
quite a
left
few
corner is the
shots of that.
Westinghouse time capsule.
Yeah, I've got quite a few shots of the girders being jacked up onto the level. There was a guy that worked construction. I restored the pictures for his son.
Look
And
how high that scaffold is for the towers on the
Yeah.
left. And look at all the trees on the roof. They got all the trees in.
well, again, they were left from 39.
That's not a good shot. That's RCA building, a very poor picture. Near the main gate. Now here's Shea Stadium, and you can see where the elevated subway lines are. And it goes in the Gotham Plaza right there. And that would be the main, RCA would be right over there. Shea Stadium has always been built at the time. Look at all the cars in the parking lot too. And then we got, now here's the Unisphere going up. That's an interesting shot, how they got the girders up in there. This again, this is the towers of New York State Pavilion and scaffolds. You don't see too many buildings here. This was taken, yeah, June 19th of 1963, which is 10 more months to opening day. Now, this is the base of the United States Pavilion. They got all that concrete work in there with the stairways. And this is part of the subway maintenance yards in here with the corrugated roof. This is the back of the old New York State Pavilion from 1939. You're looking at. And here's the expressways going up. That's the Van Wyck under construction. Here's Kodak right over here. Here's General Electric. Here's a New York State Pavilion. And these bridges just disappear into a forest of girders here. And we got, and here's General Electric. Here's Travelers Insurance. Here's Bell Telephone. Now this was taken also June 19th of 63. Here's Kodak down at the bottom. And here's the great big fountain area to have the fireworks at night. And then we
What's
got,
the little curved pavilion over to your? Oh, that.
which one? The curve?
Yeah, that guy there.
I'm not
That's
sure.
just back
I
of the
think
Tower of
this
Light.
is the Tower Light right over here.
Yeah,
the
I'm wondering what the
Tower
little
Light.
bit, it looks like a little grandstand or something there next
That's,
to it.
I believe DuPont's beginning going in.
You can see the roof of Kodak right over here, but look at Bell, just a forest of steel beams at that time. Can you believe all this with only 10 more months to opening day? There's another shot of the Unisphere going up. And here's the base of the United States Pavilion here. Let's see here. There's a nice clear shot showing everything. You see Ford, General Motors. Here's the Port Authority building, the New York State Pavilion, Unisphere. Now over here on Bell, this was July 3rd. The others were June 19th, and this is just July 30th, and they're starting to cover the roof up with panels. And this is the wonderful Board of Chemistry, and this is the IBM building. Here's General Electric. Here's Kodak. And you still don't see the ring girder hoisted up in the New York State Pavilion yet. But look how many trees they got in place. Yeah. Here's a real good shot of the industrial area. This is August 6th of 1963. Now they got all the covering on Bell Telephone, and there's the microwave tower up. And the expressways are finished. The Van Wyck Expressway is done. Look at all that stuff in the main fountain where they have for the fountains, the works and the fireworks, and all that equipment is normally submerged. Here's that curved building you saw next to Tower Light before you're marking about. I don't know what it is though.
I think it's part of Johnson, actually. I'm looking it up on the map right now. Johnson Wax's Pavilion.
Yes, that is
This is
Johnson.
the Festival of
Wax,
Gas.
that building.
This is the RCA building with the drums down here in the lower left. You know, the more you look at these, you can actually zoom in and see a lot of details on these things. If I could do that, let's see. You can see how much you can zoom in. You got too much zoom. You can see a lot of construction activity, cranes and cars and vehicles parked all over here. Now here's the good shot of that fountain. Look, it's all submerged, which you don't see when it's filled with water. A lot of stuff there. And we got, that's the Festival of Gas. These are all August 8th of 63. That's RCA building, again, August 8th. Now it's open, the main gate. Look at all the people streaming in. This is the subway storage yard here. And I think, look at all the people coming in there. You see RCA as soon as you come in through Gotham Plaza. Let's see, one more. Then it just repeats back to the beginning. But I found them kind of interesting. Those aerial views like that, especially a shot like that. You can see a lot of activity going on there. And just August 8th of 63. So not much time. It's only about 6 months, 7 months left before opening day.
Definitely a race to the conclusion. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, I sent you these pictures a while back. Maybe you lost them, but
No, I've got them. Like I said, I downloaded them from the site, which unfortunately is not there anymore. The guys sold them, but they sold them for a pretty high amount of money. And so I just had the thumbnails. While you were getting that, I remembered I had one more thing of pictures that, let me just pull up here. That, hang on. Let me, pictures, okay. This is April 64. I'm gonna just go back to share screen 1 second. These are not restored yet, but I think you might like to see how the progress came by. Particularly if you were a Mets fan. So again, just within a month of the place opening up, you were mentioning earlier about how much had to be done 10 months out. This was a month before they were opening, and you can still see as you go through these just how much had to be done in the final days. So the confetti panels are up on the
left.
stadium. And again, these have not been color corrected or anything, so that they're in my hopper, but still construction trailers on site. Little on New York, Rheingold over there in the front. Hard to believe a month from now, all the trailers are gone. There's going to be sod and everything put here in the walkways, and things are going to be moving. Looks like lunch break here outside the pavilion.
Look at all the guys sitting up on the roof.
Yeah, oh, they're up here putting up the last of the light panels that would go in. So yeah, if we zoom in on that, they're just working away up there, and it's just oh, casual. How was your day at the office, dear? Oh, fine. Just something totally different. So they're up there having getting the roof done, and these guys down below, they're having lunch on looks around the back of the truck. You can see now the landscape companies are coming in and they're putting in all the trees and sod and flowering plants and that.
Bill, in that last picture of General Electric, what are the three towers? Are pylon, yeah, where your cursor.
Yeah, I think that's the Tower of Light.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. And again, if we zoom in on some of these things, over here, we got the serpentine phone booths, but over here you say, okay, what am I looking at? Ah, these pillars here, I recognize them. That's the entrance into the little old New York area for the beer company. So tents and stuff still got to go up in these frameworks. Excuse me. Tower here, the Carillon for Coca-Cola is not finished yet. An awful lot still to be done in a short period of time. Guy in a giant snorkel, the yellow, the General Foods arches, when they went in, had primer color on them. They're the first seeing they show up yellow, and he's out here painting away on those. Down here, it's a brass rail restaurant without the balloon up on it yet, but they had the seating here that you could sit and eat out there. Oh, don't the luminaries look just great? And we just keep, there's an army up there on top of GE. And again, the one picture that faced out to the outside world, if you go and look at little things, though, like they painted this arch, they've got the General Foods Arch 5 sign up, but the Peace Through Understanding banner has not yet been hung up on them. I mean, isn't that just organized chaos? There's so much still to be done, and just wow, it's hard to imagine how they were going to get everything open a month from now. I'll rotate this one around again. It's in its original configuration. Tower of the Four Winds. Ramp going up for the load unload area for the Small World ride. Yeah, I'll save that in that configuration. Moonroof, looking nice and finished, and railings is ready to go. Up here, this is the base of one of the light towers that shines up on the giant pictures. And we're getting close to opening day. The roads at least have been paved by now. First National Bank is here, but the map outside showing where all the countries they do business in is not yet done. The plastic's been stripped away from the tower. Still a cable hanging down. They were still hauling stuff up, you know, so that they weren't done yet. I think if we zoom in on this one, yeah, I don't think they have the vending machines that were up on this particular level and never used, but there's something right here, but I don't see the rest of them that went around it. And they have the flags up on top of the New York State counties. Wisconsin down below, and here's Vatican, still very wood shapes. As again, we all know that came very late. Mentioned opening day came. They had not yet finished this roof of the travel and transportation pavilion. They also had not yet done the mural down this side of it. So when opening day came, this had a green facade, but they had not yet come up and done the plaster work on some of it. Plastic paper, what do they use? Plastic or plaster or whatever. They simulated moon craters. They were still putting those on when the fair opened. Lots of cars. There's your crown up on it. As I said, I have a whole bunch of pictures showing how they jacked that up with giant hydraulics and got it raised up there. General Motors, whatever time is 1:18 it looks like, so.
What a waste, just 18 months later, tear it all down.
Yeah, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
There's one for Jim, has a AMF construction in the back. It's a little further along here. The trains are on the track. And they're still got some scaffolding up to finish up the details. I'll rotate this one around. US Rocket Park or Space Park. Still putting exhibits in. You can see pilings where the panels are going to go in, but they're not yet there. And people again coming in for lunch down here at the Port Authority. Shay's looking pretty good, isn't it? About ready for that first, first pitch and hot dogs and beer out at Shay. And that will do that. So, yeah. Again, the building was great fun. Thanks for sharing yours, Irv. I do have.
You're welcome.
Ken, you
Glad
mentioned
to be able to get them up on the
iPhones
screen.
geolocated in Texas. I didn't have anything to do with that.
I haven't heard about that.
Well, great. Hope people enjoyed a trip back to 62 and that sort of stuff. It's it's amazing, as Irv mentioned, 18 months later to tear it all down. I mean, I guess that's what part of what makes the aura of these things unique is that well, actually people still like to see Disney construction pictures, but the fact that this was all somebody I just did an interview with somebody and they were asking what makes World's Fair so special, and I was mentioning things like, again, the IBM Pavilion. Where else could you ever get somebody to come up with the money to build something like that? And the fact that if you don't go and see it, it's gone. It's you better catch that genie in that bottle, because other than going back through photos and stuff, you're not going to be able to get it.
Bill, it's kind of amazing. I think you kind of got involved in this thread on Facebook a day or two ago. Somebody mentioned on the New York World's Fair Facebook page that we don't see these fairs anymore. And I mentioned we just don't see them in the US anymore. It's amazing how many people don't realize that World's Fairs are still held.
Yeah, I constantly have to keep telling people they haven't been in the US or since '84, Canada since '86, but they're still being held. There's another one coming up, mentioning the one coming back to Osaka, but people just, the United States, as most of us know, does not have a real awareness of what happens beyond our own borders. So things like World's Fairs and that most people, they just don't have awareness. Now, obviously, the people in Japan are going to be real interested in Osaka, but I haven't seen, here in the US, other than fair groups or anything, you're not seeing any mention of it in the general press, and you're certainly not seeing any, advertising for it. So out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, I remember when, back in the 60s, National Geographic did big, multi-page articles on Seattle, New York, and Montreal. But after that, it ceased. There was never a big article on Expo 70 or any other fair since then.
Yeah, it's like I said, when I went to Japan in '85, and I was going across the intersection, there was the giant billboard lit up with a sign for Scuba Expo '85. I had to say to somebody, "What the hell is that?" "Oh, it's our World's Fair." "You're what?" I had no idea there was a World's Fair going on. And they said, "Oh, do you want to see it?" I said, yeah. So that night, off we went, to the World's Fair. No, I didn't have a clue until I was walking across that intersection. And you start thinking, if I hadn't been walking across that intersection when that sign came up, I could have been in Japan, missed the whole damn thing. It's never would have known. Well, hope folks enjoyed their time back. Again, 2 weeks from now, we'll be back with Joey up at the top of the New York State Pavilion. And I think when he gets up there, he's going to yell, "Hey, Ma, look, I'm at the top of the world." But, we'll look forward to it. I've seen 1 or 2 of his sample pictures, and they look real neat. And then 3 weeks, the wedding, 4 weeks, back to more movies. So, oh, yeah, I see your black and white picture there as the background.
Finally dug it out, yeah.
Very, very retro.
Phones sometimes outsmart us.
That was an
What it wanted.
incredible day. I mean, it was it was phenomenal. It really was just a remarkable event. So again, I'm hoping that they do something. I'm going to reach out to folks and see where they are and start going. I know Kathy, others have mentioned that people are trying to get, contact made, but I'm sure that train will be coming down that track.
The photo data says it was April 22nd, 2014. I don't know if that was, the building was open. I don't know if that was part of one of the festivals. Or a
Yeah, I
separate
believe that
thing.
was. I believe that's when I came back and gave the 2 talks at the theater. Did you go to one of those, Ken?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay. I don't think we had met by that point in time, though.
I think actually that's the day that the admin for the Facebook site, I can't remember his name, I'm spacing out, big tall guy.
Yeah, David Anton.
David Anton and I think I ran into him and we went out to this nice Italian restaurant in Corona, and then we're rushing back to get to your talking time, and we made it. And then that restaurant a couple of years later was raided by the FBI or something for being a front for mafia importation of automatic weapons or something. So apparently we ate at this place that was, full of guns in the back storage areas for a couple times actually, because it's really good food. It's like, well, I guess it was authentic Italian,
I don't even remember what I ate that day. I remember just being racing from one thing to another, and I think we went off site and just ate at some deli or something. But that was a real whirlwind day. Events. You don't know when you do one of these things how many people are going to be there, and you walk out into the theater and you realize, oh my God, it's full. So that was fun. I really enjoyed having the chance to go and share the pictures with everybody back then.
Was this the day that Bill Young joined you for one of the talks?
Yes. Yeah. And it's really funny because Bill and I met at the gathering in the park. We're at that motel that we mentioned, and then we hadn't seen each other for years because we did our books totally collaborating. I'd write a chapter, he'd write a chapter, and then we'd homogenize stuff back together. So for us, it was like, it was a great excuse to be together again. And Richard Herring, mentioned you at the theater. I remember you coming up and we were chatting there. So yeah, sometimes you have to see. Oh, Wayne, sorry, Wayne, I didn't see you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just would like to request if anybody can find more info on the Capitol lights, that would be interesting for next time.
I'm sorry, what was that?
If anybody can dig up more info on how the Capitol lights work,
Oh, the
that
light
would
up,
be
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to look to find pictures from the big event. I will find that thing of the lights. There was a magazine that did a whole thing on, well, nothing but lighting systems from the fair. Have you seen that one? I think it's on my site.
I have a several page article that may be the one you're speaking of on my site also, but it doesn't explain the details.
Let's see if I can find that light one real quick. 1 second.
Yeah, the one I have has a lot of information about the colored lights for the fountains, for
Yeah.
example.
No, I can't find it right now. The trouble is you look for the word light and it's pulling up. I have so many pictures of so many things. It's pulling up lighthouses and all sorts of other stuff. But I'll look and I'll find that ad. It always pops up when I'm not looking for it. So hopefully this time it will pop up when I am. Great. Well, I'll see you folks in 2 weeks. And again, if you're in the area and would like pancakes, or if you'd like to be in handcuffs, come on by.
Can't eat pancakes with handcuffs on.
What's that?
Can't eat a pancake with handcuffs on.
No, you'd be surprised what people do.
That's how they save money. They put handcuffs on. You paid your money and you can't eat any pancakes.
Or you can eat and then they handcuff you.
Depends whether we handcuff you in front or
All right.
back, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
Bill,
years
what
ago, we
precinct
had
house?
a block party in the park across from my street. And a friend of mine came by and our son, you know, he's 30 now, but 31. I think he was like 7 or so. And I got a picture of him bent over the police car with his hands behind him. And, you know, Dario's got his hand on him and Neil's in handcuffs. And I sent a picture to my mother and it said, so like, oh, everything went well today, but Neil got a little out of hand. She was, oh my God, what did he do? That's a word. Don't scare mom with stuff like that. But yeah,
Did you say,
you know,
did,
Neil was
say
having
pancake-
great fun showing the picture to his kids at school.
did you say the pancake breakfast is at Devonshire or at the Academy?
Devonshire, at the Devonshire station.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, if you're able to come up, we're pretty close to, you said your friends in Studio City?
Right.
Yeah, 15 minutes, 20 minutes,
Right.
you know, worse from Studio City.
I'll have to give her a call. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, and we'll come up and give you the VIP tour. Well, great. See you folks in 2
Oh,
weeks.
Bill, I
and,
was just gonna say, I was an MP, you know, in the Army, and so I still have my handcuffs,
yeah.
and they were used hundreds and hundreds of times.
Oh, well, you must have had some more interesting days than we do.
Could be a topic for
One
a
of
whole
my
talk.
jobs was taking prisoners to Leavenworth, so
Oh, God. Yeah, it reminds me of the movie The Last Patrol.
Oh,
yes, pretty. Yep,
Well,
didn't like it.
no, that
Thanks
would
for a
be-
wonderful presentation.
oh, great. Glad you enjoyed it. I'll probably
Thank you,
see you
Bill.
on Thursday.
Okay.
Great. Take care all. See you soon.
Bye-bye. See you in 2
Really,
weeks.
Bill.
Bye.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Irv.
You're welcome.